My guess is Amazon will not be as viable a platform as it is. I think TikTok's doing a really good job at becoming more and more focused from an e-commerce perspective. I have rarely seen a product do well on TikTok that's priced over like $25, $30. So it's a very specific type of product that works well on that channel, so that's a different thing.
Hello, I'm your host John Cavendish, and welcome to Season 3 of the Amazon Strategist Show. The show that's all strategy, with no silver bullets, no magic pills, just real practical strategies to grow your Amazon business. Today, we are joined by none other than Andrew from BlueTuskr. As a marketing consultant with over 15 years of experience in e-commerce, Andrew has not only owned and managed multiple companies in the e-commerce space, but also worked in-house for multiple 8-figure brands. With his knowledge of marketing and business strategy, love for staying ahead of the curve, and ability to execute at a highest level, he has created BlueTuskr, a team of specialized experts dedicated to growth and success for e-commerce sellers. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Great to join, and we're on the opposite sides of the world, so literally pretty much as far away as you can be, and it's smooth. So
we are. Gotta love technology, man. Makes stuff like this easy.
Very easy. So I know that recently I've been looking at your stuff, and you've been talking a lot about off Amazon and diversifying. So maybe we should just dive straight in and start there. So why have you been talking so much about being off Amazon?
A bunch of different reasons. Years ago, I was in-house and I was the marketer in-house working with a bunch of different agencies and things like that. And I was sitting around watching my wife shop for Q4, which is always fun to do. And what she started to do, she got hit with an Instagram ad, went to their website, got hit with a pop-up. So then she got the pop-up, got her 10% off her first order or whatever it was. Then she wanted to learn more about the brand and see if she could get more non-biased reviews. So she left and went to Amazon to see what she could get there. But then she remembered she liked the reviews, liked what she saw, remembered she got the coupon, went back to her email to get the coupon code, went back to the website, made the purchase there. So as a marketer, I was like, I don't know what to do with that information. Who gets credit? Where does it go? If she had made the purchase on Amazon, that's not really an Amazon thing. And so I started to realize that consumers, she doesn't understand what I do at all. And so I like doing this because it's kind of nice to be like an unbiased party of just watching what she does. And obviously she gets to shop, so no argument. But I realize the consumers are educated enough that they're doing their own due diligence, especially for a purchase that's, maybe you're over your normal average order value kind of thing. And so they're hopping around and they're looking at different areas. Are they going to buy it on the channel that they were introduced you to, or are they going to wait a little while and then you've got other ads that have to do it? And from an Amazon perspective, a lot of marketing from an off Amazon side is driving traffic to Amazon. And so at the time I was like, oh man, I want to test this. I want to see if this is really a thing. And so by the time I got around to testing, I was with an agency and we did it with, I want to say, almost about a dozen brands where we would leave their Amazon ad spend exactly as is. We would change nothing else on the website and leave that exactly as is for a good 30 days and have that be a control. And then the following month, we did the same thing, but we increased their meta ad spend by 10%. For almost every single brand that we did this for, we saw about a 6 to 7 supplemental revenue increase on their website, but then about a 3 to 4% increase on their Amazon. So we assumed that about 30 to 40% of those people were actually leaving and going to Amazon, in which case it doesn't matter how good your Amazon ads are, because this is actually coming from an off Amazon perspective. So when we started to look at this, that's when I started to preach, you've got to diversify and not be so reliant on a single channel because you're missing out on all of these other audiences. Now, while that's still the case, now you're having other issues. So now you're having a really large increase in international sellers coming on to, at least for the US market, and they're driving the costs down in terms of what you can set your product price to, because it's kind of still a race to the bottom for the most part on Amazon. And yet Amazon's FBA fees, CPCs, etc. keep increasing because there's more and more competition coming in. So not only are you unable to increase your cost because your competitors are able to price theirs so much lower, but Amazon's charging you more. So by relying solely on that one sales channel, you also have to diversify because Amazon is becoming less and less profitable every year.
Yeah,
and
that makes a lot of sense. And when was that? How long ago was that?
That meta test? That was 2018, I believe.
2018. And like
2017,
have you
2018.
run a similar test in the last few years? And is it still similar?
We've done some similar ones with some other brands. Yeah, at that time we did it. It was like a big project because we were like, we're going to get a bunch of people to sign up to do this, and we're going to just run this across the board and kind of see what happens. Now we kind of do it sporadically, and you get like a client that's like, oh, we want to try it and see what happens sort of thing. Most of the time, the data still stands true. In some cases, now what we're starting to see is, so like Amazon's starting to push buy with Prime a lot more. And so in some cases, you don't see that jump to Amazon as much as you once did if they have that functionality on the website, because there's no need for them to. Now, if they still want to jump to read the reviews, you're also pulling those reviews over through buy with Prime. So like there's not need for that bleed over, which is kind of why I'm a big fan of the buy with Prime side, just because you actually get to keep that data. Because if they do go to Amazon, you got nothing, right? But so the data's been a little bit skewed, especially if someone's got that functionality in place, but almost every time that data comes out almost exactly the same.
That makes a lot of sense. It's really cool. I like that. So why are brands diversifying away from the Amazon platform?
So last I looked this up, which was about 6 months ago, because I spoke at Prosper, and this was like my whole thing, was over the last 5 years, Amazon FBA fees have averaged an increase of 10% year over year. CPCs have averaged an increase of 8% year over year, and competition has averaged an increase of 6% year over year. Last year, in 2024, this is what someone at Amazon told me at Prosper, and I take it with a grain of salt just because it sounds astronomical, but they said that 73% of sales last year came from, on the U.S. marketplace, came from overseas sellers. Now, they could have an entity in the U.S., but most of them are coming from overseas sellers. So whether that's true or not, regardless, those increases are accurate. And so Amazon is consistently increasing their fees. You're getting more and more competition, which is reducing the amount of real estate for advertising. So not only do you have more competition that's decreasing the pricing of your average product, but you also are seeing higher CPCs because of the reduction in real estate. So the issue is kind of becoming, you're getting squeezed out of Amazon. And so one of my, which I know you and I kind of talked about, one of my like hot takes is, in like 6 to 7 years, it is possible that Amazon will not be a viable marketplace for many brands. If you take an average product of, let's say it's $50 AOV, and you factor in those numbers, if those numbers continue, now let's also assume that you're probably going to have to increase pricing a little bit, whether you want to or not, because competition, no matter what the competition is doing, you're going to have to do it. You will be effectively profiting $0 within 6 to 7 years, assuming that those numbers maintain. It's unlikely that that's going to happen, but Amazon, they implemented this buy with Prime functionality, and while I'm a big fan of it, it's really kind of putting the writing on the wall, right? Like, you've got Amazon's almost realizing that their marketplace, they made it so easy for people to sell on there that everyone who doesn't know what they're doing is selling stuff on there, and so it's ruining some of the products that people get off of Amazon, and that's why you get these cheap things that break really fast, and now no consumer is really trusting Amazon as much as they did before, whatever, and so they look at TikTok or they do whatever else. And so because of this, I'm kind of seeing Amazon leaning in heavier on like buy with Prime and MCF, because they know that one of the biggest areas they have to succeed is their fulfillment. And then the other side, the obvious one, being their advertising, which is why they're pushing more DSP and allowing brands to run ads from Amazon back to your own website, just to be able to open up the real estate that's not so reliable on the actual marketplace.
Yeah, great answer. I think that everyone should be doing it if they have a product that can fit. I guess that's the next question, isn't it? Which is like, a lot of products in the past were like Amazon products because somebody saw a market gap. Their marketing strategy was to go for the gap.
Yeah.
So what do you see as, I guess, first the steps to test? Like, how would you suggest someone test that? And then once they've tested, how would you suggest they move forward into rolling out towards diversifying away from the Amazon platform. And now a very quick message from our sponsor, Seller Candy. Are you dealing with support issues, cases, flat files, suspensions, or even account suspensions? Then Seller Candy is there for you. We take the pain away so you never need to talk to seller support again. If that sounds interesting, head to sellercandy.com to check us out and book a call with our team today. That's it from us. Now back to the episode.
I think, like, if you only sell on Amazon, you don't have your own D2C website, and you want to try to, like, test the battlegrounds, right? It's a very similar space, but it's a beast, right? Because in Amazon, like, what do you have? You have your SEO, so you do like your listing optimization, stuff like that, and then you run ads, and like that's kind of it. Like, you're really out of other options after that. Off Amazon, it's SEO, it's email marketing, it's social media, it's all the different advertising channels. It's a significantly larger ecosystem, but all of these things have to work together, and so it's a challenge. And so when you make that jump, it's not cheap, right? Like, you're making a website that's going to be, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and then you've got to run ads, and all of these platforms are extremely algorithm heavy. So you're starting off with thousands of dollars just to give them a shot on a monthly basis, just to see how they do. And so all of that gets very expensive. And so what I've started to look at is, how can you, if you have an Amazon account, obviously you have storefront, right? So you're running ads to your storefront. Can you get your storefront to convert just through like sponsored brand ads, right? Like, prove out that the storefront can actually get you revenue. And so once you've proven that out, now you can start to drive traffic from off Amazon just to the storefront. Don't bother building the site yet. Don't do the landing page yet. Let's just look at, typically advertising is obviously the fastest way to bring in data. So depending on the product line, is it better for you to do social media ads? Is it better for you to do Google ads? Something like that. So you figure that model out. And then you just start slow. Drive the traffic directly to the storefront and see if you can get it to convert. If it can convert, even if it's not profitable, right? You don't want it to be obnoxiously not profitable, but I mean, like, even if you're at like a break even, because you can always improve, it's just a matter of, there's functionalities, obviously Amazon's not telling Meta or Google or TikTok or anything that like someone actually converted, so it can't optimize, so it's a bit different problem. But just to bring in enough data to see, is it viable, then that will justify you giving it a shot to try something else, right? You don't need to always jump straight into a website. Now you can look at, all right, let's just take my top seller, or maybe my top category, and let's just do a landing page and just keep the cost inexpensive, drive the traffic to the landing page, and then I usually say implement either like an available on Amazon button, so you can custom create your own button, let people go straight to the listing, or if you're at that point where you can use your own buy with Prime button and get that set up. So that way, if in fact the consumer was more likely to convert with you because you're on Amazon, you're not going to lose out on that revenue. Then start testing getting rid of the button, see if the landing page will convert on its own and if you can make it profitable. And at that point, now you can start to either build that profit up and reinvest that into building out a website and then starting the whole process. Or if it doesn't work, then you now know, okay, at what point did this stop working? Maybe I'll start testing just going to the storefront or something like that. So it's an interesting way to kind of ease into it instead of taking that big leap.
That's cool. So the first step would be running external traffic to the storefront, seeing if it converts. Like, how do you track that? How do you track conversion from external traffic to storefront?
So the only way to do it is just use the custom codes in the back end of the storefront, so you can track it in the back of the storefront. The biggest flaw with doing that is basically when someone converts on your storefront, Amazon can't speak back to Meta or to Google. So for both of those platforms, all you're able to do is essentially tell those platforms like maximize clicks, right? Or for Meta, it'd be landing page views, right? So all you can really do is tell those platforms to get me traffic, and then you just have to make sure that the traffic you're going after is qualified enough that they're more likely to convert. That's where it becomes, that's kind of why I mentioned, like, you don't really need to focus on how profitable is this, which I know there's probably a ton of people here like, why would I do it if it's not profitable? But you're paying for the data, you're paying for the learning, and then you're going to figure out how to make it profitable. But all of these Amazon's very black and white in terms of its advertising. It's here's the keyword, here's the product. It's not really that much more complicated. off Amazon, Meta is wildly algorithm heavy. It's really more about getting the right creative in front of the right people. Google is very algorithm heavy. You can lean in on search, but search doesn't do that well for e-commerce, whereas everything else is more algorithm heavy, especially use Performance Max. So if you're not teaching these platforms who is more likely to convert, they won't teach themselves. And so you kind of get an issue where you end up driving a ton of traffic of unqualified stuff. So you've got to find a nice way to like ease into it and just test it a little bit before you make that jump.
Love it. And then is there a way of using like Amazon's data or off Amazon data to, to leverage and make it even faster?
Well, leveraging Amazon's data, there's a couple different ways. So the obvious being through Google. If you're running Google ads, especially if you're doing search ads. So usually I'm not a big fan of search ads for e-commerce, but if you have like a category, so let's say you're selling automotive parts, you have an entire storefront of automotive parts, but you have like Ford specific parts. Okay, let's do a search ad that just says Ford parts and run it to that kind of thing. So that could work. And so obviously there you can take all of your keywords that you're seeing from Amazon and just test them out on the Google side. If it works on Amazon, people are searching relatively similarly when they're shopping on Google, so you could definitely test it out there. The other thing is the flip side of it, which is now if you use Buy with Prime, Amazon now allows you to run ads from Amazon back to your own website. So I love this for people who have a subscription, people that have like really obvious upsell opportunities, maybe people that have, kind of consistent repeat purchasers or something like that. So you can do DSP and basically say like, okay, all of my purchasers, people that I know are interested in this product, I now want to run ads to them, incentivizing them to come back to my website to subscribe or something along those lines, because now you can start to earn back your data from Amazon. So I start looking at Amazon as almost like a customer acquisition channel and less so, the main breadwinner of my business, because the profitability is not just there. So being able to do that, I can obviously push them to a subscription, or if I have some nice upsell opportunities or something like that. So that's another way I can start to leverage those different audiences from Amazon back to the site.
So kind of the hierarchy is if they're just selling on Amazon, first thing is drive traffic to your storefront. After that, testing, one thing at a time through a landing page. Before, every step, signing it off before you invest tens of thousands of dollars more into ad testing and content creation and website creation.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I get kind of pigeonholed as like the guy that just hates Amazon. And well, to a certain extent,
with the e-commerce
to a certain extent, you're right. Fine, whatever. But the really, I'm a big fan of obviously diversification. So you're not so reliant on a single channel. When I was in house years ago, before I got back in the agency space, Q4, I think it was December, and we obviously, typical, your credit card's hitting a certain max, so you got to change it out and all this stuff. Back then, it was like 2015, I think. And we changed out the credit card, and for whatever reason, Amazon thought it was fraud, and so shut the entire account down for 2 weeks. In Q4, that's a horrible thing. And we were like 70, 80% Amazon was our business. So, like, I thought we were screwed. And so, like, being so reliant on the channel where someone else is controlling your business is just scary. And then you look at the consumer side of things from a marketing perspective. Consumers shop wherever they're most comfortable, and they're all over the place. They're on one social channel, then they're on the next, then they're Googling you, then they're looking you up on ChatGPT, and then they're hopping around your site, and then they're on Walmart and Amazon, Target. Like, they're all over the place. And so to solely rely on a single channel isn't a good experience for the consumer either. So you can be everywhere that your customer is. So I'm not saying like everyone should leave Amazon and, it's all an impending doom and blah, blah. I think Amazon is still always going to be an amazing tool to be a part of an e-commerce business, but having it solely be the business just seems too risky to me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen stores go down. I mean, what we do at Seller Candy is bring up stores and figure those things out when shit hits the fan. So, yeah, I mean, we see it day in, day out. So what are some ways in which you can support sellers, and who is a good seller to come and talk to you to support if they're interested in this?
So we're a full-service marketing agency. So we do pretty much everything both on and off marketplace. So obviously from an Amazon perspective, same thing every other agency in the Amazon space does between Amazon ads and listings and storefronts, all the basic stuff. But then off Amazon, we're Shopify partners, BigCommerce partners, Google, MetaAds, Klaviyo. Like we basically act as like an outsourced marketing department for a lot of the brands we work with. And so typically we come in, kind of do a consultation of like, where is the business at? Where do you want it to go? Do you want to explore diversification? If not, do we want to lean in and optimize a single channel first before we start to diversify? And then we figure out what is that strategy to kind of phase us into how do we make this a larger, more scalable, viable business? Because the other thing that we often talk to brands about is if you're an FBA seller, and let's say you hit 10 million a year and you go to exit, chances are you're going to walk away with about a 2 to 3x EBITDA around there. At least from the last time I looked, that was kind of what market value was at. If you are doing $10 million a year and you also have your own D2C site, so now you have an email list, you have social followers, you have people visiting your website, you now have this much more of an asset. You average closer to a 3 to 5x EBITDA, but it also significantly opens up your buyer pool because they're people that'll want to be able to access your customers. So we try to figure out, like, is your end game exiting? If so, okay, then we need to build some assets. We need to, bring in some of your own data to be able to sell later on as well. And so it all kind of becomes a part of that conversation.
I've seen that. I mean, with our clients and also for my friends selling their brands, I think those multiples are pretty much on for the moment anyway. Not during the high times of 2021.
Oh,
they were
yeah.
expecting for 5x. But I wish we were back.
Thrasio.
Yeah, Thrasio. To Thrasio. One of my friends sold Thrasio for 5x, so Thrasio was paying the money.
I wish.
And then another of my friends just bought 50 brands from Thrasio for like point something x. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all over the place. So let's move into the next part. Controversial take. So, what's your most debatable or controversial opinion related to Amazon or the e-commerce industry?
Yeah, I'm gonna stand on the 6-7 years now. My guess is Amazon will not be as viable of a platform as it is. I think TikTok's doing a really good job at becoming more and more focused from an e-commerce perspective. I have rarely seen a product do well on TikTok that's priced over like $25, $30. So it's a very specific type of product that works well on that channel. So that's a different thing. But you start to get more people that are going over to Target. You're getting some people still Walmart, slow and steady, but it's still growing a little bit here and there. Then you've got Shopify getting their fingers into everything, where you've got like their integration with YouTube. And so, everything is becoming shoppable. And I think that because of that, it's allowing brands to not be so reliant on Amazon. But I think that with CPCs continuously going up, FBA fees continuously going up, who knows what'll end up happening with tariffs and how that's going to affect everything else. I think that brands are going to have to diversify, because if you can't keep fighting for, your more general keywords on Amazon as CPCs go up, you're going to have to build your own brand so that people are coming to Amazon and searching your brand name as opposed to just casually coming across you. And then the ones that do casually come across you, that's where, okay, how do I use Amazon as more of a customer acquisition channel and get them back to my own ecosystem so I can control the journey and my own messaging. So it's my take is I think that, Amazon won't be, everyone thinks it has been over the years. It has been around forever. But I do think that I'm speaking specifically to the marketplace. I could see Amazon's fulfillment becoming a really big thing where, MCF, they just treat it like a massive 3PL and they're just fulfilling orders from wherever they're coming from. Or you're going to get Amazon really start to get deeper into their own advertising and start to really compete with like Google, and they're going to go into other areas that are still going to be really useful for e-commerce sellers. But the marketplace in itself, I could see how 6-7 years from now it becomes a real big challenge.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. I think everyone.
I hope I'm right.
And I remember when I started Amazon a decade ago, there were things people were predicting, and like some pan out, some are like not at all. Like when everyone was predicting that everyone would be buying through Alexa, like it'll all be
yes,
audio
man,
only purchases. People are just gonna order stuff and it just shows up at their house.
Yeah, when that started happening, I was a partner at a different agency, and I remember I think they announced it at, they weren't doing Accelerate. Maybe it was at Prosper. I can't remember. Like, something got announced, and it was like every client reached out to us and was like, how do we redo our listings to be optimized for Alexa? And I was like, you don't. Like, it is. It's just going to read it, and it's fine. You don't have to do anything. Yeah, and I've never ordered anything through it, ever.
I mean, what would you trust it for?
I don't know. That's what I was always worried about. Of like, I'm going to ask it to order me something, but like, what if it's like not the one I was thinking about, or half the time I ask it to do something and it just does something else, and I'm like, okay, I don't trust this thing to spend my money for me.
Yeah, that'd be funny. There'd be some good comedy stuff that'll come out there. I mean, there'd be some really good, like, Amazon sent me extra small condoms or whatever. Whatever comes through.
Send it to my buddy.
Yeah. Awesome. So if someone wants to, learn more about what you do, interested in a conversation, like, what should they do?
Yeah, BlueTuskr.com, BlueTuskr, or they can obviously just email me directly, Andrew@BlueTuskr.com. I'm all over LinkedIn and Instagram and all that fun stuff, so just feel free to reach out.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Andrew, and sharing. That's really cool, and we're going to have some really good extracts to share, I think, of this one, because so much value so quickly. And thanks to everyone that's been watching and listening. If you like the episode, please like it, share, subscribe. Mainly like or rate the podcast, because that gets us up in the rankings of every platform we're on. So thank you so much, and see you next week.